So I'm here with Katie Halper, and she wrote this great article in Paste magazine. It says Bernie Sanders nailed it on identity politics and inequality, and the media completely missed the point. So let me just show you what Bernie Sanders said. He said it goes without saying that as we fight to end all forms of discrimination, as we fight to bring more and more women into the political process, Latinos, African Americans, Native Americans, all of that is enormously important, and count me in as somebody who wants to see that happen. He then goes on to say, right now, we've made some progress in getting women into politics. I think we got 20 women in the Senate now. We need 50 women in the Senate. We need more African Americans. This is Bernie Sanders saying this stuff. He says, but it's not good enough to say, hey, I'm a Latina, vote for me. That is not good enough. I have to know whether the Latina is going to stand up for the working class of this country and is going to take on big money interests. One of the struggles that we're going to have right now, we lay on the table of the Democratic Party. It is not good enough to me to say, okay, well, we've got X number of African Americans over here. We've got Y number of Latinos. We've got Z number of women. We are a diverse party and a diverse nation. But here is my point. This is all Bernie Sanders. He says, and this is where there is going to be division within the Democratic Party. It is not good enough for someone to say, I'm a woman, vote for me. No, that is not good enough. What we need is a woman who has the guts to stand up to Wall Street, to the insurance companies, to the drug companies, to the fossil fuel industry. In other words, one of the struggles that we're going to be seeing the Democratic Party is whether we go beyond identity politics. So now, Katie, that's the statement that a lot of people intentionally misinterpreted, and that's what you're talking about in your article. In fact, here's some of the headlines. I'm going to show some of the headlines, Katie. Sanders urges supporters ditch identity politics and embrace the working class. Democrats...
TPM, right? TPM.
Yeah, that was talk. Yes. Democrats neither can nor should ditch identity politics. Bernie Sanders actually got working class politics wrong this time. Sanders slams identity politics as Democrats figure out their future. And then from The Observer, Bernie Sanders, Dems must grow out of identity politics rhetoric. And this is from, looks like Alternate, or is that the Daily Kos? It says Bernie Sanders still says class is more important than race. He's still wrong.
That's Guardian. That's the Guardian. That's like one of the worst ones. That's the Guardian. Yeah.
So, Katie,
the
tell
one
me.
that says neither should nor can, that's Matt Iglesias in Vox. Matt Iglesias in Vox. And he says that article wasn't about Bernie Sanders at all. It was just about this conservative guy named Lilla. The only thing is it's really weird that like the most viral piece on it, which was TPM's piece, which says that Bernie Sanders urges supporters to ditch identity politics. It's a little weird that Matt Iglesias would write a piece that says Democrats neither should nor can ditch identity politics if it's not in reference to that. So here's the deal. Matt Iglesias was being lazy and sloppy or disingenuous. And I feel like it's, in all fairness, I'm a very tolerant person and I really empathize with people. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm sure there are lots of people out there who are just lazy and sloppy. I don't want to call them all disingenuous, right? Like, I'm going to assume everyone's lazy, and that's not true. Some people, we can't assume that because they've shown us that they're not. But I just want to say I'm not totally judgmental because while I think a lot of people are disingenuous and cynical and dishonest, I think that there are some people out there who are just really also lazy and sloppy. So that's my piece. That's my olive branch towards the rest of the liberal media.
So what you're saying in this piece for Paste magazine, you're pointing out how the media on purpose distorted what Bernie said and got it wrong. But you're saying that some people like Matt Iglesias might just be lazy and sloppy.
Well, I don't know with Matt, honestly, but I do think that I think that almost there's no way that TPM didn't. I don't know. Who knows? You know what? I had Leslie Lee on my show, actually, who created the hashtag Bernie Made Me White and talks a lot about identity politics. He said that Josh Marshall, Amanda Marcotte, Joan Walsh, he named those people as people who he thinks always know what's going on and do it disingenuously. And then he said that other people, not even media experts, just people who read the news, read it and take them at face value. But I think what's like really, really troubling is that I used to, as some, you know this, Jimmy, because I've kind of talked to you about this. I've confided in you about this, that I used to kind of try to be, and I don't like being mean to people for no reason. I only mock people when they've mocked me or mocked someone who shouldn't be mocked. I'm like practice self-defense mockery. But I used to really like try to have good faith debates on Twitter with people who I call the liberals. They're basically neoliberals, right? And it's just increasingly impossible to do that because I have friends who are Clinton supporters, but I realize like I don't really have friends who are Bernie bashers. And you don't have to be a Bernie basher to be a Clinton supporter. That's by the way, that's just shorthand right now for the battle over the soul of the Democratic Party, which is why I think this piece is so incredibly relevant because it's not just about Bernie or just about Hillary. And this incident that happened was when Bernie was giving a speech at Berkeley College in Boston, and the media pounced on it, and it went viral. And what I found really disingenuous about it is that the same people who were so angry at him, and we'll get into the actual language of it, I just want to set it up, but the same people who were so angry at him over this never get angry when Hillary Clinton says things that are quote unquote problematic, right? Problematic is a word that lots of these people like to use. And I like to use it too, but I get upset when things are problematic, even when there's something that Hillary Clinton did, or even when there's something that a neoliberal did, as opposed to someone who's actually way more progressive. For some reason, these people are only upset when Bernie Sanders or someone to the left of Hillary Clinton does it.
Yes, I've noticed that too. Again, they hold Bernie and people. Well, this is the whole thing. So now, what happened is that the Democratic Party in the '90s, under Bill Clinton, switched to being Republican. They instead of being the party that represented workers and unions, they switched to being the party that represented Wall Street and Silicon Valley. That really happened.
Right.
People don't really understand that yet, but the people who are not voting for Democrats understand that, and that's why they're not voting.
On some level, right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They live it. They feel it.
Now, this whole thing happening, and this is this identity politics. So they're trying to say, oh, look, Bernie is, because he's a white guy, doesn't understand identity politics. Look at him ditching identity politics. Look at him.
Right.
And so you're making the point in the article that that's bullshit, because if you read his whole statement, he's saying the exact opposite of that. He's saying we had to do identity politics and more. It's not enough. He's saying that's not enough. Go ahead.
That's the major dishonesty about that is what you just alluded to. Basically, the guy says over the course of this speech, which was it was a Q&A session, and it was asked by a woman from the audience. She asked, it was a question that was written down and read aloud by the moderator. The first question was from a woman who said she was a Latina woman and she wanted to be the second Latina female senator. Any tips? And this is how Bernie Sanders responded to it. Now, he spoke for a couple of minutes and he was emphatic about the need to have more diversity and more representation of underrepresented groups, more women, more people of color, more African Americans, more Latinos, more gay. He went through the list of all the people who are underrepresented, or a lot of them. Now that I say this, someone's going to be like, actually, he didn't mention trans, two-spirit, indigenous, Native Americans who had double amputees. So you just really that's erasure, Katie. Anyway, he went through all the different groups that are not straight white men, basically, and he said emphatically, not only did he say we need more, we need to do that, he said, I think there were about, like you said, I think there were 20 women in the Senate, we need more, we need 50. He said it's not done. He didn't even say enough with identity politics, we've achieved it, right? He wasn't saying that. All right, so identity politics is basically, organizing around representational issues, right? So it has a couple meanings, but in this context, it means it means representational diversity. It means having more people of certain backgrounds partake in politics, right? And he said that we needed more, and he said it's not enough. And as you pointed this out, it's something he wants in addition to identity politics, right? It's a very straightforward concept. It's called necessary but insufficient, right? Like you say to someone, for instance, you cleaned your room, it looks great, but now you have to, you straightened it up, but now you have to vacuum, right? No one's going to think you said to them, "Oh, never straighten up again. I don't believe in straightening up. Just vacuum."
And that's what they're
Right?
doing. And that's what they're doing to Bernie. They're kind of out of context quoting him. They're leaving off the relevant part of his quote. And this is what this is what we found out through the this primary anyway, or this year's election, is that when someone is to the left of you, you don't attack his ideas, you smear him. Because you can't attack. Go ahead.
Exactly, because you can't attack their ideas, because no one's going to say, you know what, this guy, his ideas are a little bit too fair. His ideas are a little too good for the majority of the people in this country, and they will prevent the deaths of more people than the neoliberal candidate, and they will lead to less suffering, and they'll lead to more prosperity and more people being able to live the American dream. None of those it's a good talking point, as you may imagine, right? So what do? You have to delegitimize the person and smear the person based on identity politics, because that happened to be the gift that kept on giving because he's white. Now, to be clear and male, his being Jewish never figured into it. And anyone who says he ever played the victim card is totally lying, because the guy never talked about being Jewish unless he was asked about it. And if he wanted to play the identity politics card, he could have reminded people that for as much as they love to call him the establishment, he would have been the first Jewish presidential nominee in the history of the United States. I'm not saying he should have done that. I'm just saying that anyone who pretends that he's cynical and malicious and plays dirty, that's clearly not the case, right? So what people do is that no one wants to come out who's a liberal. No one wants to come out and say, yeah, his policies are just way too good. And I'm too conservative for them. So exactly what they say is he's a straight white man. And the big line was, it's easy to be that progressive when you're a straight white man. Yeah, it's easy to be that way. It's easy to do the right thing. Like, you know what? Somehow Elizabeth Warren has a better track record than Hillary Clinton, right? It turns out not all things are because of gender. Like, and this is what's so interesting, is that with this issue, what Sanders is saying is we need more people of color. We need more women, but you know what? We also need them to have good policies, because your background per se isn't enough. It's a start, and we need more of that stuff, but that won't necessarily make me want to vote for you, right? Now, what he's basically doing is he's saying this crazy thing, which is that, like, non-white people, like white people, are people who we should take seriously, with ideas we should take seriously. Like, that's what he's saying.
Yes, that is exactly what he's saying.
And all the people upset about that are basically saying, like, can you not humanize these people? Can we just see them as like ornaments that we point to and not expect anything of?
So,
and Democrats get this, liberals get this when it's a Republican, because nobody went out to protest for the right of no one was doing phone calls for Clarence Thomas. No one was doing phone calls for Sarah Palin or Michelle Bachmann, and if they weren't progressives, or they weren't even Democrats, right? My point is that Leslie Lee said this on my show. The people who are criticizing Sanders over these statements, they understand exactly what he means, because they live by them in their own lives. And that's why a feminist Democrat does not vote for Sarah Palin.
Hey, we're doing another live Jimmy Dore show the day after Christmas, December 26th. We're doing a live Jimmy Dore show in Burbank, California. Come see it. There's a link for tickets right there.